What up, guys? Welcome to the SoundCentric podcast. I'm Samuel Sarfo,
I'm Adam Dash.
and thank you guys for tuning in for another episode. Today we have a very special guest with us.
Yes,
You
sir.
may know her from Elsie, not Elise. She's a music content creator, curator, and enthusiast. Her platform has so many different things, from music breakdowns all the way to in-depth analyses. And recently, she just dropped a YouTube video about Frank Ocean's song "Pyramids" from Chanel Orange, an incredible video. If you haven't seen it already, go check it out.
Pyramids was released as the second single off Frank's debut album, Channel Orange. Unlike Nostalgia Ultra, that was largely built on samples of other songs, Channel Orange was Frank Ocean coming into his own.
But Elsie, thank you so much for being here, and
thank you so much for having
SoundCentric.
me.
Yeah,
Go.
it's huge. But we don't want to waste any time. We want to get right to the weekly wrap up.
Yep.
So Adam, I'll ask you, what is your playlist title and leading single for this week?
Well, as we were just talking about before we click record, my artist of the year, my album of the year, my man Jordan Ward finally got an NPR Tiny Desk, the staple for any new up-and-coming artist. Not people I remember the day I found the Anderson .Paak Tiny Desk, and he became my top 5 artist of all time, doing Suede and Heart Don't Stand a Chance. And it's so cool on Twitter seeing people get that same response to Jordan. Mm-hmm. So what song will I pick? The one I was just singing in my head, White Crocs. That'll just...
Yep.
I'm trying to come up with that energy this week. That's how I'm feeling. So Sam, how are you feeling? What's highlighting your week?
I'm doing good. The playlist title for me is going to be called Scorsese, because I just saw Killers of the Flower Moon.
How was?
It was, listen, if you haven't seen this movie, you gotta watch it. It's so see, we got someone who's hip already. Adam, I know you better watch it soon. We all love Scorsese here. Incredible film, really impactful if you haven't seen it already. And the song is gonna be Hans Zimmer by Marlon Craft, a New York rapper, incredible. And that's just because I love score. I love just in terms of just creating instrumentation and things like that. Yeah. This week I was at the gym, and for some reason I decided, let me just put on some Miles Davis, straight up jazz instrumental, nothing else. So a little psychopathic, but that's where I'm at right now.
My best friend at college, he would study to Hans Zimmer, but he didn't watch the movies before. So I'm like, yo, you are studying to the most stressful Interstellar scene ever. And he's just grinding away. I'm like, I'm stressed listening in your room right now.
But Elsie, what about you?
I would say I'm still kind of stuck on Westside Gunn's "And Then You Pray For Me." I'm still stuck on that. I haven't really been able to move past it. I would say I'd highlight 2 songs here that have really been in my rotation. That's Babylon Biss and Kitchen Lights with Stove God Cooks.
That one's fire.
Both amazing tracks. Just been on repeat, really, for me.
Yeah.
We're going to dive into it more with that album, but I'm curious, how did you think Costas, so the Benny Conway song, how do you like them on a trap beat compared to maybe their normal piano roll?
Honestly, hearing Take Keith on a Westside Gunn album, I did not expect that at all. But Benny and Conway and Westside Gunn, they were able to make it work. I really like that track, Costas. A lot of people, have their thoughts on whether, it was good, it was bad, but I honestly liked it, and I just speak for myself. I love when artists are just able to kind of step, out of the box and just kind of do something, new, and not be afraid to do that, because, Westside Gunn is kind of known for one type of hip hop, the alternative boom bap, and for him to just be able to just step out and be like, okay, I'm going to give you a bit of that, but I'm going to give you something different. I think it takes a lot of guts to do something like that,
And his music, I feel like, tends to be something that you can't judge off listening once, because he's such an acquired taste of a voice.
So you
have to get used to that pocket.
Definitely.
Also, people are some people don't like Stove God. I think he's the one. I need that Stove God album.
I think he's never missed on a Westside Gunn project. He just has his own flair.
He's hilarious.
And I just want to emphasize what you said, Elsie, and that's facts. Especially as consumers, it's so easy to kind of put your artist in a box, and that really screws them over. I know, even Joey Badass, he's known as this boom bap guy, and as soon as he starts dabbling with All American Badass, and he wants to do a little bit more commercial sound, everyone's hating on him. When the message is still the same, it's still powerful, and that's difficult. And I'm a little bit of a culprit too, because I did love the album, but I didn't love the trap beats. But I also don't want to say Westside Gunn can't be on these beats, because he's trying to get out of the box. He's literally forever changing.
That's a very valid critique, honestly.
And he mentioned that, he said this is his last album, but he's still releasing projects. So whatever about that comment.
We'll see. Yeah. I think it's one of those things we'll see.
Yeah, but he did mention, he's like, "I'll get on Afro beats," because someone tweeted that to him. He's like, "I'll hop on."
Who,
I'm
Westside Gunn?
Yeah, so
Yes.
I'm curious. Let's get him and Thames on a song. I'm curious to see what that sounds like.
I saw that
That's
tweet. I
crazy.
was like, you know what? If he's able to do it well, why not?
Why
I
not?
think we're living in an age where like what we know as genres are kind of collapsing. Like the
Mhm.
lines are blurring day by day. And I feel like any artist, like we saw Gunna just hop on Afrobeats.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was
And
sounded
he did
good.
crazy.
well. Like it was
It
pretty
sounded
good.
good.
So
Mhm.
honestly, I feel like anyone could do anything music wise as long as you're willing to execute that well.
Mhm.
Mhm. Do you think that's because of streaming, that genres are collapsing a little
Yes,
bit? And I know Adam,
yes,
he's kind of like
definitely.
a visionary when he thought of it because he was saying that with the future of streaming, everything's gonna be niche now. I don't think there'll be well, that's what he said. There won't be like as many superstars as we're seeing
Mhm.
now, but people will have their own hardcore fan base that they'll root for.
Facts. Honestly, I agree with
Mhm.
that. Streaming has changed so much about music. I could, if I wanted to talk about my thoughts on that whole topic, like it would take hours. But
Yeah.
definitely, streaming has really contributed to how people consume music these days. We're not really seeing, that rise of that superstar.
Mhm.
Like people were arguing in rap really recently. Like if you go 10 years back, you had like Kendrick, Cole, Rocky coming up all together during
Mhm.
the blog era, just having all these superstars emerge. And you can't really say the same, for right now, because
Yeah.
everything is just so niche. Everyone will have their own niche fan base. And because of streaming, you could just open Spotify or Apple Music and play whatever. Before you
Yeah.
actually had to be so interested that you were willing to, go to a store, spend money,
Mhm.
purchase, a CD or a vinyl. So definitely different.
Yeah, I have 2 different thoughts on that. One, I think the niche stuff is awesome. I saw Denzel Curry talk about this, but he says people clown him for his first week sales. But he's like, "Every single show I go to is sold out, so who cares?" And I
Exactly.
Mhm.
think that's awesome from a niche standpoint. And then I saw the NBA player JJ Redick talking about this on his podcast, that there's no more icons in basketball. There's no Michael Jordan, LeBron James, because we know so much about these people, and it's a constant 24-hour news cycle. So
Mhm.
back then, the only way you saw the news was if you were listening to sports radio or if you were reading the newspaper. Now all you have to do is go on Twitter, and I know way too much about Joel Embiid's life. And it leads in the same way for artists. We know too much about Doja Cat and what she does separately.
Exactly, and that
So
that removes from that mystique. The
yeah.
mystique kind of makes you, you know, gives the artist a different light. Michael Jackson really commented on that there's just an
Mhm.
era, like an aura of mystique that an artist has to have in order to, be perceived as a superstar. But
Yeah.
once people kind of know everything, then that level of mystique just ruins everything. That's the formula that Beyonce uses as
Yeah.
well. Like we don't know anything about her apart from what she chooses to show us. And
Mhm.
that's why she's still one of like the last superstars because of that aura of
Yeah.
mystique. We're losing recipes,
Yeah.
these
And
days.
Kendrick and Cole have been awesome with doing that. Like, I don't even know what
Exactly.
gender J. Cole's kids are or how many there are. He'll randomly just talk about them on the album, and it's like, does he actually have a kid? Because we haven't seen a single picture,
I
which
think Mr.
is
Morale was
cool.
the first time like I saw Kendrick had two
Yeah.
kids.
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
like, whoa.
So yeah, it's fun. It's like I'm a big fan of the niche artists because I love niche artists. And I mean, we don't really need superstars anymore. And there's no more Hollywood superstars too, because we know too much about their
We
lives. And
know
you're like,
way too much.
oh, they're a blah 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 politics supporter. I'm not a fan
Mhm.
of them anymore. Back then, you
Mhm.
didn't hear anything.
Didn't
You didn't
hear
know
anything.
about it.
True.
But it's interesting how record labels will adapt to that, right? Because
Yeah.
these are the people who made them money. And although you don't care, I don't care, we don't care, right? But
Yep.
they need their money, right? They,
Yep.
they need to care. So how that's gonna work. And I'm also curious how many artists are gonna now shift to just being strictly independent, being away from a label. And like for example, Jordan Ward, and obviously he's amazing. We talked about his NPR. Is he an independent artist currently?
Hmm.
I
I
don't know
feel
if
like
Jordan Ward is independent, but one artist I could say that is independent is Brent Fayez, and he's
Mm-hmm.
yes.
been doing like his own
Yeah.
thing, and I think he's gonna be a blueprint for a lot of artists that just want to do their own thing but independent of the
Hmm.
whole label structure. So I
Yeah.
think he's a case study.
There's a video of how Brent Faiyaz does his touring. It's from years ago, but it showed how using the Spotify metrics, there's super fans, which I believe are people that listen to you like 3 times a day and
Oh,
purchase like your merch and stuff. So they use that to know how to do their tours. So, okay, Chicago and Philadelphia, I have super fans. So I can do this venue in those towns compared to maybe in New York, I have a little bit less fans, so I do a smaller venue. So that helps them more efficiently like plan their tours.
Oh, that's really interesting. I actually have never like heard of people using that metric. That's cool.
Yeah. I can find the video. I can send it to you after, but it's a really interesting video.
Really cool.
Yeah, but hopefully that becomes the new wave, you know? That's what I'm hoping, you know, getting, at least getting the masters, the actual entities into the artists' hands rather than the labels. And when you see big artists being able to do like Brent Fires and whatnot, hopefully more artists can actually stick to being independent rather than joining the label. And I say this all the time. For example, Drake doesn't even have to be on a label, but he does. Obviously, he's getting a bag. But if he wanted to leave, that could destroy the
He
whole
could
industry
easily
by
like
himself.
not be on a label. I mean, it's Drake. People are gonna listen to whatever he puts out. So
yeah,
he had the ability to shake stuff up with his last contract, but he ended up re-signing. I know people wanted him to. It'd be crazy to see how the industry would react to the largest artists shifting. But to touch on the Brent Fires, you made a video that came out yesterday on vocal layering, which was amazing.
Thank you for watching that.
Yes, I love Brent Fires' vocal layering specifically, and Frank Ocean's is amazing. But to touch on your content, me and Sam were debating because it is so well made. Do you do everything yourself? Do you make like the YouTube documentaries with just by yourself?
Yeah. So honestly, starting out, I would say I'm most of the time a one-woman team. However, I will point out for the pyramids video, I worked hand in hand with a talented editor. So I kind of did some editing myself, but since it was such a like in-depth video, I just couldn't deal with all my workload. But for everything else you see, you know, I do everything myself. Maybe because I'm very perfectionist. So I find it hard to really collaborate with people because once I have a vision, I want it executed exactly, you know, how that vision goes. But yeah, I do a lot of stuff myself. I take it really seriously. I write a script for every video I put out, kind of edit that script, create visuals, you know, annotate. So recording is a whole process, but you know, I try to keep that level of quality.
Yeah. And when did you decide to start taking things with music serious, and what kind of pushed you to kind of start beginning curating content?
Okay, so that's actually a good question. I started making like content, not music wise, like 2019. I had a podcast for a little while, but it wasn't about music. It was kind of just, you know, just talking about topics. And, you know, eventually you kind of run out of topics to talk about.
Yeah.
So I stopped that, you know, I think 2020. But then I was always very active on Twitter, music conversations on there. And TikTok was kind of just taking off back then, like 2019, 2020. And I would go on the app and I'd see a lot of people talk about music and they'll get like thousands of likes, you know. And most of the time I would look at people's videos and be critical. I'd be like, okay, you know, you had a good music opinion, but you could have executed this video in a better way, you know. And when I found myself doing that, I was like, okay, maybe, you know, I could do this. So I started my TikTok March last year and it took off way faster than I expected. Like I did by May, I think I had 50K, and then by September 100K, by December 200K. So it was like, okay, you know, and I wasn't even 3 months in when I, you know, did some work with Amazon Music. You know, I had a lot of labels reach out to me. And that's when I decided to, you know, okay, I could take this very seriously. So this year, you know, I started my YouTube channel this year because that will give me, you know, more creative space to play along with very long form content. So it's really about where this takes me. I don't really know where I want to end up.
Yeah.
To be honest, I don't even know if I really want to work in the music industry because from what I've seen so far, it's a lot. It's a lot going on in there. It's just a lot. But then I don't know. I just wherever it takes me. But I really enjoy what I do. I really love having conversations, even with people like you, just like minds that appreciate music as much as I do, and just sharing that is really priority for me.
So a couple questions about your content specifically. So you've kind of found a niche audience because talking
Yeah.
about people like Griselda is always going to be a niche audience, and someone like Frank Ocean might be a little bit broader. So how do you decide what you want to talk about? Do you think about it from a perspective of more people will want to hear about this Frank Ocean thing, or I just really like this Griselda album and I don't really care if people this one gets 1 million views, because I'd rather just talk about this album I love.
Actually, that was something I really struggled, because my music taste is very diverse. I remember last year I did a video on Westside Gunn last year, and then I followed it up with a video about Sade. And it made me laugh a lot, because I'm like, those are two entirely, different, separate artists that don't even have interlapping, fan bases. But I've just gone to a point where I've noticed that the people, I don't know if it's the TikTok algorithm, but the people that you target, like if I make a video about Griselda fans end up finding the video. If I make a video about Stevie Wonder fans end up finding the video. That's one thing I've noticed. So I don't know if it's the algorithm doing its work, but I try not to think about that this time. If I have an idea I'd like to share, I'm just like, you know what, I'll talk about it, because eventually I think the audience is going to find this video. I don't know how they find it, but they find the video, and then that really works for me. But I always maintain that anything I talk about on my page just has to be something I like. I just, working here, you get pitched a lot to, I pay you if you talk about my music, and I'm like, that's cool and all, but I have to like the song, before it goes on the page. So yeah.
Yeah, it's all about being authentic, and that's why I think your voice is important as well. Like you were saying, you're looking at what was out there in the landscape, and obviously they said some nice things, but some things can be said better. And that's why it's so important, and why we're so happy to have you here. Like just having, like, again, a Black woman's perspective coming in and sharing that space and having the authenticity there is important, and just really credible in general. Yeah.
And when it comes to the algorithm, have you found a science to it? Because I'm sure other artists would love to hear this. Is there a time of day that you found posting, or just random?
TikTok is the most, it's so frustrating. That's the most frustrating algorithm ever. Because you could have a video that does well and you get 300,000 views. And then you make a video that might even be very similar, and then it gets 500 views.
Yeah.
So it used to drive me crazy. TikTok, before, I used to think, I'd post at a certain time every day. But then sometimes you make a video, post it at 8 p.m. and it blows up. So you just, it's something you could just never tell. Honestly, I've tried to find the science to it. I haven't been able to find the science.
We posted a video about Joey Badass and Logic repeating lines. And at first I got to 700 views while I was at dinner and I posted it. Then 2 days later, Sam texted me. He's like, yo, it's blowing up. I'm like, what?
Exactly.
So it was 700 views. So for us, that one ended up getting 45,000, which for us was huge.
Exactly.
But then, so I'm like, oh, let's build off of this. Let's post another video, because hopefully the algorithm will direct it. Next video, 300 views.
That's what the algorithm does. I try to understand it, but I've given up at this point. Whatever happens, happens.
And then YouTube-wise, have you found anything that kind of works? Are you a shorts person too?
YouTube is more I think the YouTube algorithm is a little more predictable, because you could kind of work around it. For example, the thumbnail really matters. You got to get a thumbnail that catches people's attention, the title of the video as well, and kind of just utilizing your reach in other platforms to kind of direct back to YouTube. So I think YouTube is more predictable. I haven't really got into shorts, just because shorts are 60 seconds max. And sometimes I think of an idea and I'm like, I'm going to need at least a minute, 30 seconds, to put this out. Yeah. And that 60-second limit is just too tiny for me. I think that's why I don't really explore shorts as much, but I know it's a really good tool, to build an audience.
Yeah. And you're doing really well in everything, of course. And you just talked about starting the YouTube, and you talked about doing the Frank Ocean video. What pushed you to do that? Why Frank Ocean? Why this song? And just talk more about it.
Frank Ocean is just an amazing songwriter. I was arguing with a friend, we don't really have amazing songwriters these days, especially in R&B. And I was listening to Pyramids, and I'm just like, honestly, I'd listened to that song for so long, and I just used to jam to it. I didn't care really about the lyrics. I'm a production person. I don't hear lyrics when I listen to a song 5 times. I don't hear lyrics at all. But then I just kept hearing Cleopatra, Pyramids. I'm just like, there has to be a story. There has to be a story in this. And I sat down with one of my friends, and we sat down and we kind of just looked at, and we're like, wow, okay, this could actually be movie-wise. So I think almost 2 months of work went into that video, writing the script, sending it to a lot of people. Yeah, sending it to a lot of people. What do you think about this? What can I add to this? So that Frank Ocean video was very collaborative. I sent it to a lot of people. Just let me know your thoughts. What do you think I should include in this video? But yeah, Frank Ocean is an amazing songwriter. It's a pity he's just deciding not to
Yeah.
any music anymore.
Yeah.
I really want more from him. I think he has at least one more classic in him. I'm so confident, but I don't know. It's up to him to decide.
That song, I feel like Pyramids is kind of similar to my reaction to Same Drugs by Chance the Rapper, when I didn't realize it was talking about Peter Pan the whole time until I think I saw the Genius breakdown. Like, he's like, Wendy, you've changed. I always thought it was like, when did you change? I didn't realize he was saying, Wendy, you've changed.
Yeah, and shout out to Genius too, because sometimes you can't understand a concept and you kind of go on your website and someone in the comments just kind of breaks it down. You're like, yeah, that's what I was looking for.
So to go on that Frank Ocean comment about him not really releasing music recently, and he had the whole was it Coachella incident where he didn't come out. So something we constantly debate is how much do artists owe fans? And we always say that, or at least I do, from the music perspective, like releasing music, you owe us nothing. Release when you want. From a concert perspective, people paid money to come see you. Show up because people are investing in you. So I saw Lauryn Hill came out late again recently and
I saw that too.
Singing the lyrics wrong, different beats, and people are like, "Why do you keep buying Lauryn Hill tickets?" Because it's Lauryn Hill. For some reason in your mind,
honestly, I bought the tickets. Like I plan on seeing her this coming week in Toronto, so I hope she doesn't pull, whatever she pulled there, because I spent money on those tickets.
Yeah.
So
what is your thought process on what do artists owe fans? We've seen Doja Cat literally try to alienate her fan base from her, which is a crazy move, but bold. Let's see if it works.
Honestly, what do artists owe fans? Like, I like the way you kind of separated that with the music and then with concerts. Especially for a festival like Coachella, where you have a lot of people traveling actually there for the festival, especially for a headliner act. I actually planned on traveling, but I just had last minute plans and I wasn't able to make it.
Smart.
But I really feel like a lot of people, brought up the Frank might have stuff going on in his personal life and all of that. But I still think, for people, at least people flying all the way there, people coming to see you, you owe them a good performance, at least.
Yeah.
I mean, how long do performances take? Highest you give them 1 hour, 2 hours.
Yeah.
Even one good hour, will satisfy a lot of fans that spend a lot of money, buying festival tickets and coming long ways to see you. Also with Lauryn Hill, I really don't know why she's built this reputation of, coming late to concerts. I mean, it's something that people say she's been doing since the early 2000s. So I can't quite understand it at all. People are still going to buy tickets anyways because it's Lauryn Hill. I mean, the name carries a lot of weight. But having to do with stuff like Doja Cat, for example, like, I don't know. I feel like for you to get really upset at what she did, you have to be a stan. Because I feel like Doja Cat from the start, because I discovered Doja back in 2014. No one knew who she was.
The Muse song,
on SoundCloud, and she's always been like this. Like this, Doja has always been like this from the very start of her career. So me personally, I try. I don't know if a lot of people might agree with this or not. I kind of separate that art from artists depending on what they did, because like for artists like R. Kelly now, like I don't want to really separate that. Like I just toss the baby out with the with the bathwater. But for people like Doja Cat, I just don't really pay attention to all the shenanigans. When Scarlett came out, I listened to the project. I thought it had some pretty good songs on it, to be honest. But at the end of the day, the fans are the same stands that were angry, they're still gonna eat up her music.
Yeah.
So to me, a lot of the outrage it's a little pretentious to a degree, and I try not to really just tap into that. I honestly don't pay attention to a lot of like personal lives and all of that. I just feel like I have way too much more important stuff to worry about whether Doja Cat hates her fans or not.
Yeah.
And I saw today that Benny the Butcher posted a video of him complaining that fans shouldn't have as many opinions, which I saw someone respond saying Griselda is kind of a self-conscious label because there's like Conway was mad about Funk Flex not reacting to the freestyle, which was correct because he didn't, and that was an amazing freestyle. And people might not give them the praise because they're from Buffalo and New York radio doesn't play them. But it's an interesting conversation about who should have an opinion and what's fair, because at the end of the day, we like social media. It's fun to just talk about music. So maybe he was being a little sensitive about that topic.
To me though, I feel like everyone is entitled to their own opinion as long as they actually listen to the music. You know, it's one thing to give your opinion if you don't listen, but
and just a hater.
I feel like once you put art into the world, you should be prepared for critique. Like you should be prepared for people to receive it how they choose to receive it. I feel like a lot of people, you know, some people get really disrespectful, you know, with critique. They go for the artist personally, and I don't really like that. But if someone actually comes out to be like, I listened to this album, you know, I took time to listen and I didn't like it, I don't think there's a crime in that. I feel like everyone is entitled to this. So I feel like a lot of artists get really sensitive, you know, when people say they don't like the project, but it's art. You put it out, especially when artists are like of a very high level. I wonder why they take their time to like go through comments,
what do you expect?
Videos. Like, of course, if you're the biggest artist in the world, there's gonna be, you know, some people that don't like what you put out, and people that like what you put out. And that's music, you know. So I feel like artists should channel their energy towards people that actually love, you know, what they put out, instead of like responding to every little that's like,
Drake.
You know?
That was beautifully said. But it's tough though, you know, and I feel like especially with Twitter, I guess now
Twitter is crazy.
I remember a time where like you really had to critique music, but now it's just mid this, mid that, mid. Like, and as an artist, especially imagine being an artist. You put your heart, your soul, your everything, just for a bunch of people who don't even get it. Like, don't understand the chord progression. They don't understand all that stuff, the vocal stacks, and they're like mid. I would be PO'd, right?
You know, I feel like it's a certain demographic though. I feel like high schoolers, you know, all that type of because like if you actually, I feel like, for example, like you see a lot of like tweets like, oh, like Kendrick makes horrible music and like you're like kid, you know, and I'm like, if you actually grew up at a time where he was dropping, you know, Good Kid, he was dropping To Pimp a Butterfly, and you actually like were present in that moment, I feel like you'd have a much greater appreciation, you know, for the albums that put out. But I want to say I kind of know where the whole discourse came from, you know, referring to albums as mid, you know. I don't want to mention his name, but that discourse certainly stemmed from online conversations, and you know, and I just really, I tweeted about this a couple weeks ago. You know, I find it hard to have conversations about hip hop anymore, like sensible conversations online, because you're like, I really like this project, I like this. Someone's like, it was mid. Like, not elaborating, not even saying what they didn't like, just it was mid, you know. And I have a problem with that, to be honest.
It's difficult because music does take time to digest. For example, I was a sophomore when To Pimp a Butterfly came out. I did not like it. And then a year later, I was like, this is the greatest piece of art ever made. It took time for me to understand this dick ain't free and him being all jazzy and doing these weird inflections. And now it's my favorite. I think it's the best album ever made. So it's hard because, say Drake comes out an album, and sometimes Drake albums do take a while to click for you, but also now next Friday, there's a whole new group of albums coming out. So it's hard to digest fully and take that time.
You're right.
And it's like, my friends were mad about my Drake take, and I said, I listened to this album that was an hour and 20 minutes over 5 times. It felt like homework. I don't want to do it again. I don't want it to hit after 5 listens.
You know, I listened to it 3 times, and like, that was even pushing it for me. Like it was a lot. So when I gave my critique, a lot of people were like, you didn't listen. I'm like, you know, I listened, but I feel like with what you said about To Pimp a Butterfly, I think you could tell, at least for me, when an album has a tendency to maybe grow on you.
Yeah.
Like you're like, okay, I don't really like it, but like I kind of see how maybe the creative direction they're taking. But sometimes you can listen to a project and you just know that like from the start, like, okay, the artist could have done better. So at least that's how it is for me. Like Beyonce, when she dropped Renaissance last year, I didn't like that album. I was just like, okay, you know, it's not bad.
Yeah, say that one more time for the people in the back.
But
I love Cuff It.
It has grown on me crazy.
Okay.
I didn't expect that album to grow on me the way it grew on me. I think the whole tour and everything added to the experience. But I think that's a great example of just I didn't quite get it on first listen. I'm like, okay, this isn't bad, but I don't really like it.
Yeah.
Like, but I don't feel like that was my reaction for Drake. It was just like he
Yeah.
could do better. He could do
That
better.
that's an interesting point about the concert and the whole vibe of it making you like an album. She's the
Yeah,
biggest artist in the world, and she isn't just dropping an album expecting people to like it and doing nothing. She's adding to the experience. And I
exactly.
think that's actually something that a lot of artists can take from. Make your tour a whole experience because maybe people
Facts.
didn't get it on the first listen, but if you're maybe an
But
opening artist,
when they
you talk
watch you
about
perform that,
you talk
different.
about Jordan Ward before. I saw him open for JID and Smino. Legitimately was the best opening act I've ever seen. He
That's what
was
I heard. I heard he's so good.
he was running around screaming like a WWE wrestler, but still singing well. And after every song, he'd make the crowd repeat the song. So it'd be like, what was that song called? Fam Jam 4000. So when I went home, I'm like, oh, that was the one that I really liked. And it impressed me a lot. I was like, that's
That's
really
fire.
cool.
That's fire.
But an artist who does quote unquote sometimes oversaturate the market, some might say, is Westside Gunn. And someone who's
Oversaturate. Like I want to. I want to. I'm not sure I understand. Like
maybe
She wants
some would say
clarity.
maybe he drops too much.
okay, I see what you mean.
So, like, obviously, like last year, was it 2 years ago when he dropped back to back with the Hitler Wears Hermes double album, like
He
2 weeks in a
dropped so
row,
Mhm.
Yep.
and it's a lot of songs. But actually, I thought the double album did pretty well. I thought it was a really good album. But he dropped a new project. He says it's his last. We don't believe him. Who cares? But what were your thoughts on the new album and the takes that you got?
Yeah, I was really excited when I saw "And Then You Pray for Me." The way it was framed, it was like a sequence, like a sequel to "Pray for Paris," and everybody liked "Pray for Paris."
Great.
So going into the album, I kind of had expectations. I thought like the sound, palette and design would be very similar to "Pray for Paris." But going in there, album started like any Griselda album. I was like, okay, but just like I said, hearing "Take Heed." I'm like, what?
Yeah.
I was so confused. But just listening to the album, I think Westside Gunn also, kind of perfected the balance. He had trap there, but he still sprinkled, some songs that just gave that classic Westside Gunn feel, like Kitchen Lights, for example. And you
Great.
were just able to see, that glimpse of brilliance out there. Um, but he did mention the fact that I think I was watching his interview with Fantano just a couple days ago, and he was saying that he wanted to pay like homage to the originators, the gritty trap, people
Mhm.
like Ti, Jeezy. That was kind of what he wanted to do, and bringing DJ drama, and getting that context from him. Actually, I went to re-listen to the album, and it made a lot of sense to me. I'm like, okay, wow, this context really matters. I think the album was great. I think
Mhm.
people have valid critiques saying that, they didn't like the trap sound. I feel like people have their valid critique with that, because it's very hard to kind of maybe hear an artist that you expected something from on something entirely different. Um, but I really I might be biased just because I really like West Side Gun. So, but I really like the effort that went into the album, and more songs, even the trap songs that I didn't love on first listen, are really growing on me. So I really think it was a good
Mhm.
effort. I don't believe in rating albums over 10. I feel like that might change. So
Yeah.
I really don't believe in that, but I
Mhm.
think it was pretty good.
Yeah, I 100% agree with your take. And seeing Westside Gunn being able to work with these legends, trying something new, that's always going to be applauded. And
Hmm.
you even mentioned Pray for Paris, which is my favorite Westside Gunn album. Sometimes I can keep my artists in a little box
Understandably.
because, right, that was incredible. And then he
Hmm.
dropped so many times after. I'm like, please just slow down. Let us continue to love Pray for Paris. And I'm happy you also brought up Beyonce too, because when I heard Renaissance, and listen, I'm a huge Lemonade stan. Like
Okay,
that
yeah,
album
everyone
like
loves
was
Lemonade.
right revolutionary. Then she dropped Renaissance. I
It
didn't
was
get
so
it.
different. It's like,
So
what is
different.
this? you know?
Yeah. And then when she started doing her concerts and actually putting it into the theatrics, I'm like, oh,
You get
okay,
the
this is the
context.
grand
You
vision.
actually now get the context. And I feel like that's kind of what, to me, and just going back to Drake's, project, I feel like the last few albums he dropped have been lacking that context, like that
Mhm.
context into the art. Like, why did you take this creative decision? Like, for example, with Honestly Nevermind, I liked that album. I actually enjoyed it. I think he could have come a little harder, but I really liked, that album. But I feel like Drake acts like it doesn't exist. Like,
Yeah.
he didn't really tell us
Market.
why you decided to do a whole,
Mhm.
dance album. Tell us why you took this creative choice. It's just like I dropped it and then like 6 months later I'm giving you another project, and
Mhm.
didn't really get the context, for that project. And
Yeah.
then I dropped Her Loss. Okay. Collab project with 21 Savage. Less than a year later, here's another project.
Yeah.
Without getting, that context. And that's my beef, with Drake.
Mhm.
That's my issue.
Yeah. I think that context conversation is really interesting because I remember watching a Tyler interview and he discussed for Call Me If You Get Lost how much Westside Gunn inspired him for it to rap again. And I think it's like, oh, I see the first song opens with a Westside Gunn beat. Like Tyler wanted to rap again. And it adds context. He's drama throughout it. And what we're seeing now, although he might be a smaller artist, Westside Gunn is on a Travis Scott album. He is getting he's on a Kanye West album. That literally felt like a win for all of hip hop Twitter. And like, what are your thoughts on this underground sound reaching the mainstream?
Oh, I'm all for it. I'm all for it because I just feel like, when people think hip hop, they think of rap caviar. They think of like the mainstream stuff, and the underground is crazy right now. If you actually like
It's
hip hop
awesome.
right now, the underground is insane.
Mhm.
I know a couple artists that I really like: Red Veil, Mavi, D2X.
Fire.
A lot of artists that are just dropping really, really nice work, and I'm just seeing Westside Gunn, get those props gives me hope, that people are going to be able to appreciate this other side of the genre. Because there are a lot of hip hop is dead conversations, every
Sam.
day. Hip hop is dying. Hip hop is dying. And like, just listen to the underground. Maybe mainstream might
Mhm.
not be, but the underground is really
Yeah.
great. So seeing Westside Gunn, like, on a Travis Scott project, yes,
Sick.
I love.
Yeah, and Adam threw a little bit of shade there. He said Sam because I'm a pessimist. I'm the old head that's like hip hop is dying, but
Uh,
I know the underground is popping, right? But hip hop is not only a young man's game, but it's not always about the underground. We got to get some of those underground folk into the mainstream, but now
mm,
because of streaming and everything, is that even possible now? And
yeah,
one
that's
thing
what.
about Drake, right, and with his album, I don't know why, and this is not just the first time he's done this, but drop an album that's just really long on purpose. And because of streaming, it's shorting our attention spans and whatnot. We can only
Mhm.
digest short songs now. Songs are getting shorter. Albums are getting shorter. So I don't know why Drake decided to push us to listen to this type of album, but also just I'm just really concerned a little bit how
Hip hop.
music is going, not just for hip hop, but music in general, right? But I also understand that, like, for example, music was on the radio back then, and radio distorted what was out there in the music landscape. But
Mhm.
now it's TikTok. TikTok is just radio, right? It's kind of like a trend. You listen to it, whatnot.
Basically,
But
basically.
yeah, so I
Yeah.
don't know.
I
Yeah.
don't know. Music is a very, I think, very transitory space right now. I think the
Hmm.
next, couple to 5 years are really going to define where music, because with the whole AI
Oh
shenanigans,
my gosh.
as
Yes.
Awful.
well. Music is just in a very weird, very weird space right now.
Hmm.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
agree with that.
As we're in a stage and the record labels do not like this, the power has shifted towards the consumer and not to them. So back in
Exactly.
the day, you went on MTV, like they paid for their placement. That's the only music video you were going to
You're gonna
see.
see.
You went to Best Buy, there's only a certain album. You couldn't just be living in your house, make an album, get it on the shelf at Best Buy. You had
Yep.
to have a record label to distribute that. And you
Yep.
could say TikTok does push specific things. Who knows what goes on behind the scenes if blah, blah, blah artists paid TikTok, because TikTok might actually even start its own record label and
Yeah.
have its
Yeah.
own
I've seen it
artist.
actually.
Same way that Genius has Win, and they constantly post her on the Genius Instagram. People are like, "Who's this blonde girl always posting?" Well,
But
Genius
it's
is
kind of
now.
like, when you open TikTok, I don't know if you've noticed, like if you want to maybe just record a video, there's some songs that just automatically start
Yeah,
playing. And you're like, I didn't even pick this song. Like,
yeah,
like why is it playing? And I feel like that's what TikTok does. I feel like a lot of artists maybe pay for that placement to
yeah,
just have like their song playing. Once you want to record a video, like the song just starts playing. So I think TikTok, has a hand in choosing what sounds, go viral right now.
yeah.
Hmm. Yeah.
And the consumer, we say who we want to see. There's a reason why we've seen artists blow up in a crazy rate, which leads to them skipping quote unquote steps of their career. You see
Artist development.
artist development is definitely lacking. But on the other side, it is cool to see someone like Ice Spice completely go from having one song to having a song with Nicki Minaj in the biggest movie of the year. And covering...
I have a lot of thoughts, on that, because I feel like nowadays, blowing up music wise isn't what it used to be. The audience are very much interested, even more than the music, with personalities now.
Yeah.
And that is, I feel like that has changed everything, because before you heard a song because you liked the song, you didn't even care about the artist's personality. But now a lot of people, like especially with Ice Spice, and no shade to her, I respect the hustle, but I do see a lot of people, say, oh, I think she's so cool. I think, she's down to earth. I think, I like her, like her character, her attitude. And I'm like, the music? can we talk about the music?
Yeah.
And that's what's been happening a lot. Like, and the music has been good, actually. Like, I like what, she's done with the Bronx Drill, and I really like what her producer Riot has really done. I like his sound. But I just find out when it comes to music discussions nowadays, it's like a popularity contest, contest with like personality. People don't even want to talk about the music anymore, which I think is very dangerous. Because like now being an artist, talent is not enough anymore. Like you have to be good looking, you have to have like a likable attitude, like you have to be social media savvy. Like it's just a lot these days.
Yeah. Kendrick mentioned, he said critics wouldn't mention when they missed when hip hop was rapping. If they did, Killer Mike would be platinum. So we'll see what this Grammy year, what that's gonna look like. It'll be interesting to see what's getting nominated.
But that's just a part of it, I mean, when it comes to your brand, you have to know how to market. You got to be out there, and if you're not likable, your music won't take you far unless your music is that good. And I say this, like we talk about Jack Harlow, incredible artist, right? But he's also so lovable. Like, how do you not like Jack Harlow? He's a great guy.
Yeah,
right?
He's a personality.
Yep.
Yeah.
But just to end
I think that's the route that Offset kind of took with this album.
Live streaming.
Like with the live streaming and everything, like you kind of got to see like, okay, who is Offset, as a person, and that likability kind of now translated over to the music. So it's a new kind of space we're seeing here.
Yeah. And because it's a new space, I want to end it on here. What are your thoughts on, I guess, the future outlook as a whole for music? Of course, you talked about AI, right? How do you feel about that? Streaming, TikTok. What is it going to look like in the future? I know for me, I'm a little bit scared, but we'll see. But what do you think?
Honestly, I'm with you on that. AI particularly kind of scares me, because I just know that we're like, what we've seen is just a tip of the iceberg. Like I think it's gonna get way worse. And I'm just thinking of the amount of people as AI gets smarter, because accordingly they say it gets smarter every day. But like, which jobs are gonna like fade out? Is the like in 10 years now, is being a producer actually gonna be a job, or computers are gonna be able to just do everything? Because right now I don't even send emails anymore. I just type it to ChatGPT, like type this email, and it does it for me. And AI is getting voices. Like, who knows what music is gonna look like? So I'm kind of scared for that, because it takes away the actual talent, like that human quality of a producer sitting down and coming up with a beat, an artist singing in the studio. Yeah, I feel like music is. I feel like we need regulation, like very, very quickly. If not, like it's not looking good.
That's the thing, though, right? We need regulation. And I was listening to an episode from the Spotify CEO, and basically, this AI material is in the hands of these companies, and we're hoping that these companies can hopefully regulate it and use it for good, not for bad. But when has that ever happened in history?
When has that ever happened?
Exactly, right? And the Spotify CEO was talking about how when people make music and the files get uploaded, it's in a WAV format, so they can't really tell how the song was made. So whether they used AI or not, that can be identified. And they were doing an interview with Grimes, who was another incredible artist. And what she was talking about was a way that artists could get paid. And not every artist or person agrees with this, but she allows AI of her voice to be made. So if you go to Spotify right now, it will be Grimes, the actual artist profile, and Grimes AI. And for the Grimes AI, you can use her voice, make it however you want, make cool stuff, right? It's still art, but at the end of the day, because you're using her voice, she still gets paid. So that could be kind of a fair way that AI could work.
Payment, or like
that I don't know.
Part of it, because that's
the labels got to figure it out.
For me, if you use my voice, you have to run me my money, like the full thing, like. So it's very complicated, but okay, I guess I don't know how I feel about that. I think that's
Yeah.
kind of weird, to be honest. But
Mm.
as long as she's profiting, I guess, you
They
know.
would they would mention in my college classes last year that I forget the exact stat, but I think it's like in 10 years, 50% of the jobs that will be around haven't even been invented yet, which is a scary stat, but also a very intriguing stat. Like, what will that look like? And I was even thinking about this last night, and this could be so wrong. Who knows how AI will develop? Can you replicate having a person? Like, it's one thing to write a song. I've written to ChatGPT, like, write a rap about blah, blah, blah in the tone of Jay-Z. And it does it decently well, but can you replicate that personality and actual, like, internal thoughts that an
I think
artist
there's a
has?
nuance that humans have, just being humans. Like, especially for example, someone like Jay-Z, that where he grew up and everything, and his own experiences. I just AI has to get really smart to be able to replicate that nuance. Like,
Yeah.
has to get really smart to be able to just, I don't see that happening soon, but there's a possibility of that being the case in the distant future, at least.
Let's hope not.
I agree that it can replicate the nuances, but guess what? The consumers don't care. If it slaps, it slaps, right?
No, though. Like nowadays,
That's the
people,
issue.
like a lot of people were, debating about this on Twitter of whether lyrics even matter anymore. These days, I've noticed people don't even really care. Like, you just have to have good flow, good production.
Yep.
People just have to be able to vibe, and you got yourself a hit. Like,
Yeah, there was
that's
that ghostwriter guy that made the Drake Weekend song, and
yes.
he was tweeting out. He's like, "Can everyone try to get Drake to hear this so we can work together?" Like, dude, no one wants your AI stuff. Get it out of here. They're clowning him.
But let us know what you guys think. Elsie, thank you so much for being here. Honestly,
Yeah.
it really is an honor.
Thank you.
Please tell the fans where they can find you, and this is your time to put in a plug.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to say a special thank you to Adam and Samuel for having me on this podcast. You can find me on TikTok, elsienotelise, Twitter, elsienotelise, Instagram, elsienotelise, YouTube, like, you get the.
Of course.
Of course. We'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks, guys, listening. We'll see y'all later. Peace.